Welcome to the Really Know Your Customer podcast with your hosts, Betsy Westhafer and Tony Bodoh. Join Betsy and Tony as they dive in with highly successful C-suite leaders who have grown successful organizations by creating a laser focus on listening to their customers and building deep customer relationships. Now, it's time to join Betsy and Tony for the Really Know Your Customer show.
Hi, and welcome to the Really Know Your Customer podcast. I'm Tony Bodoh.
And I'm Betsy Westhafer.
We're here today with Mark DiMassimo. He is the chief of the inspiring action agency, DiMassimo Goldstein. Mark works with companies like Weight Watchers, Jackson Hewitt, Budget Rent-A-Car, and they do amazing work with these companies to help them both grow their brand and grow their businesses.
We are so happy to have you here today, Mark. Of course, as you know, you are a fan favorite of Tony and Betsy because you wrote a wonderful foreword for our book, which we greatly appreciated. You have such a great perspective and creativity, especially in times like what we're experiencing now. So we're just really excited to have you here and to have a great conversation. So why don't you kick us off with giving us a little more background about you, your career path to get to where you are now, and really what you're focused on right now with your business.
Thank you so much, Betsy, and thank you, Tony. I'm so honored to be on, and I'm a fan favorite of yours because I'm such a fanboy of both of you and of your work, which has just been amazing. And that book, Profitability, anybody who's read it should read it again, as I have read it multiple times. And everybody who doesn't have it ought to go out and get it right away. That's Profitability, Prophet ability. It was an honor to write the foreword for that book. What a propitious day to be having this conversation, to be on the Really Know Your Customer podcast. Today, Cinco de Mayo is, I know what you're thinking, the anniversary of Mexican independence. Yes, it's that. But even more importantly, it is the 24th anniversary of the founding of DiMassimo Inc., which became DiMassimo Goldstein. So 24 years ago, May 5th, 1996, I founded an agency in New York City. It was one owner and one employee, just beyond entry level, but a brilliant young strategist, brand planner named Ben Rothfeld, currently a math teacher in the Bronx in New York City, but he had a wonderful career at the intersection of brand strategy and analytics before he decided to pursue his other dream of becoming a school teacher. But it was him and me in the 12th Street, Lower Fifth Avenue apartment that his parents weren't using at the time. And within, I think it was only 2 or 3 months, the shipments of Apple computers going up the elevators got the attention of the co-op board, and we were kicked out and had to move to professional offices. So when I started the agency, I basically said, I put a picture of Steve Jobs on my computer screen. And Steve Jobs then, I think he was just back at Apple making $1. He was, he was sort of the guy who had gotten kicked out of Apple and then didn't seem to have much of a success with Next. But I wrote a note to anybody who would read it at that time, basically saying, this is my ideal client. I don't want to work for the clients most agencies do, the clients who don't know what they want, don't know where they're going. I want to inspire greatness. I want to work with clients who want to be great, who want to do great things for the world, who want to build life-changing brands and businesses or organizations. And I'll take the pain of being a perpetual student, learning from these people, because the pleasure of learning is going to be so worth it. So that was really the goal when I started. The way I got there is my parents were sort of, Renaissance entrepreneur types. My dad, electrical engineer, inventor, pretty good visual artist, pretty good clarinet player. My mom runs a glass art studio now. She was a biology teacher when I was a kid. The scientific method, investing. My father's mother painted scenes on lampshades. She was a painter. until the stock market crash, and thereafter worked in the actuarial department of MetLife. So this idea of kind of going back and forth between the artistic and left brain analysis and scientific method was something that I think I sort of grew up with and have just absorbed with the pasta on Sundays. And I just got fascinated early on with, why do people believe what they believe? It just seemed, growing up as a kid in the Vietnam War era, and then in the 70s where so many things were being questioned, people were living and dying based on what they believed. And how did they come to believe what they believe? How did they come to feel they belonged to what they belonged to? I just really wanted to understand that, and that obsession turned me into a brand and ad guy. So my focus right now, we call it inspiring action. We really believe that some brands are inspiring action brands. They don't just tell their stories, they do their story. Nothing works. There's no better advertising than word of mouth. Today, word of mouth is driven by reviews, and which are driven by customer experiences, and also by brand experiencers who may not be customers, but it's all driven by experience. And experiences come from what you do, and some small percentage of what you do happens to be what you say. So, I mean, just to give you an example, Domino's thoroughly reinvented themselves by doing a few actions and by committing to actions which reinvigorate the experience, which reinvigorate the brand. So, back in 2008, they actually doubled down on a strength they had, which is fast delivery, and they created the pizza tracker. So you could see where your pizza was at various, stages of its delivery. So it wasn't a problem that they fixed. It was actually a strength that they accentuated by embracing technology and creating a new customer experience that integrated with what worked for them. They've done so much more since. They fixed potholes so that the delivery trucks can get there better. And so they're out in the community. Again, they're emphasizing fast delivery, not trying to fix a problem, but trying to accentuate what's already extraordinary about what they do. Some of it might seem a little trendy temporarily. Lately, they've been the first to deliver pizza by drone. So they're taking actions. When Howard Schultz of Starbucks closed all the stores to retrain everybody in their core, how do you artfully make espresso, and announced that and took the revenue hit from doing that, that was an action that really said, wow, they really do care about their core experience. I admire that kind of leadership. It's still so rare and therefore so powerful. You look at these categories, this will be where I end for the moment, let you guys ask me another question. But you look at these categories where the baseline is, oh my God, we're dying. In retail all over the place, it feels like the last days, the end times of Blockbuster. And everybody wakes up and feels they're in a dying business. And then you look at Starbucks and Domino's and, even Pizza Hut too, where the CEO basically said, we got to do better with our pizza. And here's what we're doing. A courageous act. And they are bucking the trends, and they are winning market share, and they're succeeding because they had the courage to lead. And that's inspiring leadership. Inspiring leadership builds a brand, which is just a reputation, right? Which comes from experience. So even though I'm an ad guy, I'm a brand building and business building professional. And advertising is just one of the tools.
I think one of the things that stands out to me, Mark, is as I followed your brand, and, we've done some work together in that, full disclosure there. But as I followed your brand, the one thing that really stands out is this whole idea of inspiring action. And it's not just about getting people to feel better, but it's about inspiring action that transforms the consumer's life. And I'm thinking like Weight Watchers, right? So many people struggle. January, every year, we know it's the time that everyone signs up for a gym, for the next diet, for the next app. They make their commitment to run a marathon or whatever it is that year. And yet a month later, most people have kind of fallen by the wayside on those things. So you look at a Weight Watchers, you look at some of these other companies that you're working with in the health and the wealth sector. It's about inspiring them to choose to live a better life and have a better life. So talk to us a little bit about when we talk about really knowing your customer, how do you know the type of clients you want to take on because of what they can do for their customers?
Well, Tony, great question. And as you know, I recently participated in the wonderful profitability virtual bounce back summit that you and Betsy really invented, instigated, organized, and ran like two marathon runners, for that whole long day. What a wonderful, inspiring event that is. And I would encourage anybody listening to go. Do you still have that? Is that still up and free right now for folks to watch? Got to access that content. It was a great day with so many inspiring speakers. But, on that day when I had my half hour to just talk to the audience, I talked about how identity is the most important concept in all of marketing and branding. I believe it's the most important concept in business. And I also believe that it's a concept that actually can cure a lot of the confusion that people have right now. Because some people are saying you've got to have a purpose. You've got to be a purpose brand. Others are saying you need to have a problem that you solve for a customer and be pragmatic and functional. And, what I would say is that when you truly understand how identity works at the core of a brand, you realize that there's no argument there. There's only a choice to be made. So, for example, if I go all the way to the end of the bell curve, to the end of maximizing purpose, I talk about Yvon Chouinard's company, Patagonia. They've just recently clarified that the purpose and mission of Patagonia is to save our home, to defend and save our home planet. That's what they're saying. So that's pretty darn far from to get you, if you're climbing a rock face, we're going to get you a crampon that doesn't break, or we're going to give you an all-weather cover-up, you can take from the rainforest out onto the kayak. No, they exist to defend and to protect our home planet. So, but then, on the other end of the spectrum, there's let's say the Swiffer or a Dyson vacuum cleaner, where great design means that you don't lose suction when you're vacuuming. Seems very pragmatic and functional, solves pain for a customer. But to me, what ties those two together is identity. I can buy outdoor gear anywhere. If the identity I want to buy is I am in love with this planet, with the natural planet here. So the way identity brings together these two extremes, the practical with the Dyson, the purposeful with the Patagonia, is that, I can buy warm things to use outdoors from just about anyone. That's become a commodity. And sure, I like a better product and a better price. But if I'm the sort of person who's just in love with planet Earth, in love with and sort of jealous of these outside spaces, wanting to make sure they're maintained, then I can support that identity when I wear Patagonia, and I support it with my money, and I wear the badge and it says that that's who I am. When I buy a Dyson, even if I need it to just vacuum my living room rug, I'm saying I'm the sort of person who appreciates design, who appreciates inventiveness, who loves a better mousetrap, right? And who will pay a little bit more for it. If I buy a Volvo, I'm saying that I care more about love than I do about loving my family, about loving the experience, about loving the open road, than I do about prestige or being seen to have spent more money or styling for that matter. So identity is the core of every one of these purchases. And so I think identity is the most important thing. Tony, did I answer your question? I went on an identity rant, and I feel passionate about that.
No, I think it was an awesome answer to the question, and it really fills in the blanks because, like you said, you tie together the purpose or the pragmatic brands under identity, and there's been research in that area for at least 40 or 50 years, but it is so underutilized. And I know Betsy and I tapped into that in profitability. We talk about how identity is so key to the human experience, and we make our decisions based on that. So I love that you went on that rant because I haven't had a chance yet on the podcast to do that myself.
I have a follow-up to the rant. So, Mark, I know that you work with Weight Watchers, now known as WW, correct? And
Correct.
if you look at the evolution of their identity and who they serve, back in my day when I was younger, it was all about losing weight. Now it's all about being healthy. So can you kind of talk through us about, as the identity of your customer changes through the years, how that knowledge helps you in the work you do and how you go about really understanding, is there an identity change coming, an identity crisis? How do you really dive in to know what's going on with your customers?
Great question. And Betsy, I know that this is the belief I'm about to espouse is one that you and I emphatically agree about. And I know you've got some great solutions along this line. I have a fundamental belief that the old style, linear, iterative process that so many marketing departments and so many ad agencies and brand agencies still use today is obsolete. And that would work sort of like this. First, we ask some questions. Then we do some research. Then we transform that research into a brief. Then we find a partner to work on that brief. Then maybe we research the output of that. Then we go into market. Then we read the results and all of that. Now, all of that still happens, and all of that still has to happen in part of a process. But whereas I used to believe in research, I now believe in cresearch. Whereas I used to believe that production followed creativity, I now believe in creduction and creative. I'm making up words to the point of absurdity here, but my point is, if you're not engaging a dynamic panel of your customers, your brand lovers, maybe even representative of a broader range of constituents, if you're not in constant conversation with them, if you don't know them well enough that you can get them involved at any moment in a question, if they're not part of your team moving forward, then you're going to lose touch at various phases of the process with what's most important right now. There will be a price to pay. So to take this to the Weight Watchers example that you mentioned, Betsy, we love the management that we're working with there now. It's a really tight team with us and them. They're visionary. Mindy is a great CEO and leader. She used to head up Home Shot HSN and et cetera. And she really has a mission around helping people build and maintain healthy lifestyles. Oprah Winfrey is not just a spokesperson here. She's a significant owner of the business. She's on the board. She's engaged. And of course, she's just one of the great visionaries of our time, as well as being one of the great communicators. So if you get intimidated easily, when I put Steve Jobs up to have Mindy and Oprah as clients, I got my wish. And one, they saw we were very successful with Weight Watchers before, working with Maurice Herrera, who's currently our client at Avis Budget. We were engaging customers and doing well. They had a change of management. The world changed and Maurice left. And fortunately, we still get to work with them. And new management came in and they said, the world's turning to lifestyle. And not only that, that there's WW Weight Watchers Reimagined now. And that's that membership. It's online. There's also workshops, but there's other Weight Watchers products and services that help people lead healthy lifestyle. The Weight Watchers name just wasn't going to cover where the whole company was going to go. So they saw that, they made the change, and together we've helped stitch together those relationships, because when you change, you need to bring people along as well. And you can have an identity solve in the sense of the identity of the company. You've got to then solve it again at the identity of the customer level, and you've got to solve it at that customer experience level. And that's a really challenging thing to navigate. They've done a great job of it. And it's a public company. I can't say more than what they've said, but I would say go look at their most recent earnings release from last week. even in these challenging times, Weight Watchers is just doing a great job in helping 5 million members around the world.
Wow, that's such a great story. And you think about if they hadn't really been open and looking for that evolution, they would be blockbuster.
Yeah.
It really it speaks so much to leadership when they're open to what they may not know. And so I think that's just a classic example of that. And congratulations for your work on that. I mean, it's really incredible to watch that brand evolve.
Thank you. It's so satisfying. I'm so proud of the work and the teams at DiMassimo Goldstein who do the work. The great joy there is you feel part of a community that's just so motivated to help people improve and change their lives, which I feel something we all have in common. We three have in common that we want to be a part of improving things. And I think execution's been a really important part of this too. I mean, I think people have had great ideas through the whole history of Weight Watchers. So many smart people have been involved. Some teams really managed to have the courage and energy to execute. And, maybe others didn't do as well. It's wonderful to be on a team that has it all.
So Mark, take us a little deeper into another area. You do a lot of work also with companies focused on wealth management, helping people build that. And I think right now is an interesting time as we're looking at how much the stock market has dropped and what people are thinking about their wealth and people without jobs and paychecks. What are you seeing there? And do you think that this is going to fundamentally change the identity of those customers that were loyal to these brands previously?
That's a great question, Tony. We're dipping into a little bit of futurism here. And as an entrepreneur, and I've been an entrepreneur even longer than I've been a brand builder and an ad guy, and that's a few decades now. But as an entrepreneur, I've always got my eye on the future, always have my eye on what needs to change, on where the green shoots are and what's changing. Here we are, we're doing a podcast. I don't think 5 years ago, most people would have known what a podcast is. We're on Zoom. We're doing all of our business on Zoom and platforms like this today. Some of my global technology clients like Salesforce were doing that a couple of years back. They're using Google because they have a partnership with Google, but they were doing that, but most weren't. Now here we are. And so I do think in finance that some of the changes that were already afoot and predicted, the emergence of Robinhood and other sort of millennial-focused platform-based brokers with no fee. Obviously, they have to have a revenue model, and they do. The flip to passive investing and the need to evolve to something a bit more sophisticated and balanced than just pure passive investing for most people who maybe don't have the assets or the iron guts to live through utter, recessions and depressions and stock market crashes and not touch their accounts. All of this was happening. And I think this only accelerates the evolution there. Frankly, though, I think the great risk here, if you listen to a Bill Gates or George Soros or pick your, I've gotten to a point where the names are the first to fall. The guy who wrote Principles, Ray Dalio. So these thinkers who study history and truly are futurists, they'll talk more than most of us about what the true risks are if you're really a student of history. How long can we expect the patience of people with a system that drives so much inequality and really creates so many losers with the cycles? And what can we do to help make sure that enough of the people, that most or all of the people have the opportunity to experience the American dream and do okay? So that's the big risk factor hanging over all of this. There are loads of services for wealthy people, and there are loads of wealthy people, and there will be loads of wealthy people. One of the things I've loved about working with Jackson Hewitt is that Jackson Hewitt's one of the rare financial services companies that actually is focused on America's hardest working. Jackson Hewitt's writing checks to people, the biggest check of the year, to a sizable number of people whose biggest check of the year is their tax refund because they've got an earned income credit from the government because they work. Even though they work, they're not earning at a level where they're paying taxes. They're actually getting something. And then other customers too, they can't get the time of day of a financial advisor. Not then, not now. And yet companies like Jackson Hewitt are bringing solutions that really improve these people's lives. And it's just a pleasure to be part of it. And there are more visionaries in that regard. I want to, if you're out there, digobrands.com, Mark DiMassimo on LinkedIn, I want to be part of that revolution. I want to be part of the revolution of bringing financial services to America's hardest working, to the middle class, to the working class, if that's still a word or a phrase. I think it's really important. Wealth, when we said we were focused on healthy, wealthy, and wise, or on health, wealth, and the pursuit of happiness, those are the UN, UNESCO, they tell us that those are the three things that are most highly correlated with what they measure as subjective well-being, which is happiness, satisfaction with life, your health, your sense of wellness, your wealth, and that's just about having enough. Having much more than enough doesn't make you happier, not as it's measured, but having enough does. And then your education. Those are the three factors. So we're heavily involved in all three. We mentioned wealth. I thought it might be alienating to folks who help people who aren't the wealthy. But we basically said, no, we've got to change the meaning of that. Wealth is something that everyone should be working on and can be working on if we're innovative.
I love what you're saying there. And I think with this transition that we're experiencing now in the midst of the coronavirus, I think that pool of people is really going to be embraced because through no fault of their own, through something that's completely out of the control of everybody at this point, this thing got loose and wreaked havoc on the world. I hope that there will be a lot less judgment around people that may not be financially healthy where they would like to be. And I hope that with you inspiring action, that others will want to do what they can to reach out to that demographic as well, because it could be a guy that 6 months ago was rolling in it and he just happened to be in an industry and a business that didn't survive this. I'm really hoping that the judgment piece really goes away on that particular topic. What are your thoughts on that, Mark? Well,
I couldn't agree more emphatically. I do think I'm a naturally look for the silver lining, look for the bright side kind of person. I'm a natural contrarian too. When Warren Buffett says we try to be greedy when people are afraid and we try to be afraid when people are greedy. I might not love that word greedy, but his point is we're brave when people are fearful. We're fearful when people are brave. We look for the opportunities when people tend to look for the problems. One advantage I see in this is that when disaster becomes the norm, we don't have to worry about permission to fail. We advise entrepreneurs and leaders to be courageous. Well, they should try to build resilient, anti-fragile organizations. You do have to be brave and take risks to succeed. And, today, I hope people will be freed by the nothing left to lose, environment to be innovative and to just follow their convictions because you can't see that many steps ahead. Secondly, I just think that you either build a social contract or you need to build a repressive society because, in other words, people are going to do their parts and participate because they believe that they have a shot at getting a fair shake, or they have to be forced to. We are not a society that believes in using force in a police state to keep people in line, right? With the exception of the criminal laws. So right now, I think the social contract's being remade. We need you to be part of keeping us all healthy. We realize that creates economic hardship, maybe even economic impossibility and we're trying to do things about it. And I think our government, we can talk about the polarization in Washington and what's happened with the rhetoric and all of that. But, it's nice to see them come together and pass bills, and it's nice to see cooperation among the states and all of that. We should appreciate it. We should maintain it. We should look ahead. My friend, I'm going to mention Dan Heath. We served on a board together and became friends. He's such a wonderful author. He and his brother wrote Made to Stick and Decisive and some other great books. And he's got a book out now called Upstream. We're a society, we're a species that recognizes heroes. But what about the people that make heroism unnecessary? What about the drownings that are prevented? The disease that never happens because we have good health policy, This is a book all about solving that problem and understanding it upstream. So, I was talking to Dan via iterative email conversation over the last few days about this very thing. And I think this shift to thinking upstream, both at the micro level, of your career and your business and your family, and at the macro level of the society and the world, we need it, or else we're headed for more trouble. That's preventable.
Hey, Mark, I have a question for you, shifting gears a little bit, but it was a thought that was sparked in what you were just saying. So you're a creative guy, you're in a very creative business. What have you seen in terms of the creativity with your clients? I mean, you guys have always been creative, but because of everything that's going on, there's a lot of talk about how people are having to be kind of forced to be creative. But what are you seeing with your clients in terms of their openness, their willingness, their energy around creativity?
That's a really great question. Somebody said to me the other day, quoting what someone else said to him, I think it was Mark Smith, said, right now people are buying aspirins. They're not buying vitamins. So in other words, I'm so focused on my current pain that I can't really focus on the long term. But I have to say that I've seen that change in the last 2 weeks as people and organizations have gotten over the initial shock. And, many of us were frozen, at least for a hot minute, like rabbits. And so we were neither fighting nor fleeing. We were just, there's the other reaction, right? Which is just, you're paralyzed. But we don't know what's going to happen. So we don't know what to do. And that shifted to where this is happening. We're in this, it's social distancing. We have to adapt our businesses and acting. And it was an aspirin era. Whereas now it's like, okay, there's going to be opening. This is going to go on for a while. We need a going forward plan. We got to solve the immediate problem, but we've got to focus on what's next. So I do think long-term strategic thinking and the ability to do that is the organic state that both the individual and the team needs to get in order to be creative, to be a host for creativity. Once you can be a host for creativity becomes viral. So I see that happening. I'll just add that I actually have found that Zoom is the right level of social distance for most of the great creatives I deal with, that actually they're more receptive, less defensive, act less crowded, are more frank, are more pragmatic, and are willing to bring forward the right ideas and their most creative ideas. And I found clients have also been very efficient, very open. And so I wouldn't want to go back. I think the conference room's a really awkward place to have creative meetings. The garage might be a good place, but I find Zoom to be a gift. And I think we're more focused too. We'll have Zoom happy hours and we'll have a little time to check in at the beginning, but we're happy to be working. We're happy to be connected with each other, and it's high quality. Tony, right now, another silver lining of this minute is that right now the price of not knowing your customers, the price of not being in daily or weekly communications with your customers is that in this world that's changing so fast and so unpredictable, you just don't know. right? So that price of disconnection from your customers at this moment, and I would say going forward for the foreseeable future, is so high that I believe that the brand builders and the marketers out there are going to be actively, urgently prioritizing, searching for solutions to have panels of their customers, to have daily or weekly interactions with their customers. I just see my vision right now is a whole lot of marketers and business leaders getting to know their customers intimately, so much better than they did before. And I just think so much greatness is going to come out of that. Customer experience is going to improve. Insight, which leads to better communication, more appropriate communication, is going to be there because of that connection. The briefs are going to be more creative because the insight will be well grounded in that customer connection. And so the brief you get as a creative person is likely to be the brief you still have when you produce the creative, which gives us more runway to do great work. So if this crisis turns into an opportunity to get to know your customer better, to engage your customer in your creative thinking, I think the world will be a better place for it. I hope to be part of that revolution.
That's awesome, Mark. That's a great way to wrap this up. We do have one more question for you. We like to ask our guests, we're very big on community give back. So is there any organization that you're involved with or that you know of that you'd like to just give a shout out to and let our audience know about the good work that they're doing?
Oh, wow. Yeah, absolutely. I got two that I'd love to tell you about really quickly. One, they're both, I'll give you a COVID-related message for both. I've been so blessed and honored to be able to work with National Jewish Health in Denver and also in partnership with Mount Sinai, National Jewish Health, Mount Sinai Respiratory Institute in New York, with Jefferson Hospital in Philadelphia. National Jewish Health is our nation's #1 respiratory hospital, really a leader in the world in innovation, science, research, and care for respiratory illnesses. The work they're doing around both the acute and potential chronic issues around COVID is just going to save and change so many lives. They're out on the front line. Whenever I buy something on Amazon, I buy it on smile.amazon.com, and little tiny bits of money go to National Jewish Health. National Jewish Health fundraises. If you have to give, help them now. It's a great way to save lives now and in the future. If you don't have anything that you can give right now, still go to National Jewish Health's website, read what they've got on COVID, find out what they're doing, tell people about it. Here's this, and this, my next thing, it's a little off the beaten track, but it's so important right now. For 25 years, I've been working with an organization that's now called the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids and the Center on Addiction. 25 years ago, it was called the Partnership for Drug-Free America. I've been on their creative review committee, honored to lead their creative development board right now. I've been an active volunteer with this organization for all that time. My wife, Jill, even worked there 20-something years ago, developing the creative. We've learned so much about addiction, preventing drug misuse in the U.S. Right now, social distancing is a nightmare for families who are dealing with drug misuse. Close with their kids and teens, they're seeing things that they wouldn't ordinarily see. Normal treatment and recovery facilities are not operating as they were. People who should be in treatment, kids who should be in treatment are home. It's a really challenging time. Not to mention that people are not going to hospitals for normal care, and so new addictions are being born right now. The Partnership for Drug-Free Kids, and they provide so much free service and help. So if you're in need or know somebody who's in need, if you're worried about somebody in your family, or if you have a friend who's worried about somebody in their family or worried about yourself, there's so much free help at the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids. Check it out. You can get a daily text. You can keep it anonymous. It's just a great service that's out there right now, and certainly do support them as well.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for being on our show. We are so honored, and this has been a phenomenal conversation. we knew parts of where it might go, but I love that you took us down some other areas to explore. So thank you again for being here. We really, truly appreciate it.
Betsy and Tony, thank you so much. And thanks for all you do. You're so inspiring. Just so great to be in your network and to be here.
Wow, Betsy, I just love this conversation we had with Mark. And the thing that really stands out to me is how he talks about knowing your customer by understanding their identity. Who do they want to be? And who do you want to be as a company? And whether it's a pragmatic element or a purpose that drives you, it's the identity that's common between those. And I think that's something that we can really take to heart as we're trying to understand who our customers are, what they're trying to achieve, where they're trying to go in their lives or in their businesses.
Yeah. And, when you talk to somebody like Mark that is so experienced and so successful in his body of work, and you think about, sometimes people say, oh, I've got to rebrand. And what that means to them is creating a new logo versus what you see in the thought process of somebody that operates like Mark at such a high level, and what branding really is. And the identity piece of that goes so far beyond what people think of as traditional branding. I think it's something that is so helpful to people. And then, when he was just talking about how important it is now to talk to your customers in whatever way, shape, or form that takes, but just nobody knows. Nobody knows right now what's going on with their customers. And the customers don't know what's going on with the customers. So I really appreciated his comments on that because, of course, that's along the lines of the messaging that we're putting out there right now in terms of really getting to know your customer. So I just thought it was a brilliant interview. Super excited that he wanted to join us today.
Absolutely. I think I really enjoyed the fact that he talked about it from a strategic level, but then that's the brand level. And then they create the ads at the consumer level. And so you really do have to be listening, is that unfiltered listening you and I talk about all the time, at the strategic level all the way down the organization. And that's what he does with his clients. They listen to their customers, they listen to their clients. And it's fascinating to see how that plays out in what they do. The reinvention of Weight Watchers, the work with Jackson Hewitt, some of these other organizations, it really does stand out as powerful when you apply these techniques, these methods of thinking.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, that is a wrap for today with our guest, Mark DiMassimo from DiMassimo Goldstein. We hope that you got great insights and value from listening today, and join us next time on the Really Know Your Customer podcast.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Really Know Your Customer. We hope you gained a lot of value from being here today. If you want to learn more about the work Betsy and Tony do to help their clients thrive, visit Betsy at thecongruitygroup.com and Tony at tonybodoh.com. See you next time on the Really Know Your Customer show.